recording. Fantastic. So the meeting is recorded. And I will call this meeting to order at 3:02. I would look for approval of the agenda if there is any additions, errors, or Trustee Waters. All those in favor? Carried. Governance agenda 4.1, audited financial statements. Secretary Treasurer Colin Carney.
Thank you. I have included in the agenda a memo explaining kind of the results of the audited financial statements. We did budget a $3 million deficit, and we ended up with a $706,069 surplus. The statements were presented and reviewed to the audit committee 2 weeks ago. In attendance at the audit committee meeting was our auditors, BDO. I've also invited Alan Litzler from BDO. I've invited them to the meeting today. So the process that we usually go through is do the audit committee meeting and then have Alan present his report to the board. And then we go to the chair of the audit committee to provide a recommendation to the board. So I invite Alan to present his report to you.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to quickly go through our report. Like Colin had mentioned, we had met with the finance committee and gone through the statements as well. I'm happy to report that these statements are in accordance with Canadian Public Accounting Standards. It's referred to as a clean opinion, just as we have in the other years. So no deviations from those standards. So that's good news. Our opinion was based on generally accepted accounting standards or auditing standards, sorry. And also basically those charged with governance, the statements are their responsibility. We were just basically there to audit them. Like I said, there was a clean opinion. And the rest of the report just kind of goes through kind of our responsibilities. We're identifying risks of material misstatement, getting an understanding of internal controls, evaluating accounting policies, and then looking at the overall financial statements as a whole. But as I mentioned at the start, which is the best paragraph of all, is that it was a clean opinion. And these statements are in accordance with the standards.
Okay. Thank you. Because I would.
Thank you very much, Alan. I do have a hand raised from a trustee, Trustee Manning.
If Mr. Kearney wanted to finish his comments, I'll wait.
Okay. I actually don't have any further comments. I was more going to open it up if anybody had any questions. And then if there wasn't any questions, I would turn it over to our audit committee chair, Trustee Waters, to provide his report.
So I can see, Jim, you're talking, but I can't hear you.
I found it very, I've never been on it before, so it was very informative. We asked some questions, and basically, I think that the Colin and the other gentlemen that were there that evening have done a great job in explaining exactly where our dollars are going. And I thought it's, if you read it, you'll find it that it's been a very good report.
Okay, so I did have a question, Chair. May I?
You sure can.
So I'm just wanting to make sure that I kind of got my head wrapped around this correctly. If we project a $3 million deficit and end up with a $700,000 surplus, then really we have had a $3.7 million to the good surplus, right? Now, I know you've outlined a little bit about why that is. Could you elaborate, Mr. Kearney?
Yes, absolutely. And I shared this with the audit committee as well, but we did have a $3 million deficit, and I truly feel that we would have come close to that $3 million deficit, except
Is that money still there, like sitting there? Is that where that, like the travel and things like that, is there a bunch of money sitting there that may be spent eventually if the kids can ever get back to traveling?
No, because we don't, we build it right back into the budget, right? So with our budget this year, we're budgeting $4 million, and we didn't get any federal government funding relief, and we still have a lot of COVID expenses, such as cleaning, and then at-home learning program. So basically, it just allowed us to use those funds this year, right? So with having that $4 million surplus deficit approved for this school year, that's really all we did, was we transferred those savings from last year into this year. I'm not sure if the board, we would have had the same conversation in the spring if we weren't aware at that time we were going to have these kind of savings, because we were projecting to, have around a $6.5 million reserve left over, right? So if we would have hit that target, I don't know if a $4 million deficit in this, current year would have been a comfort level for the board, right? But we just transferred the funds forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. The other comment or question or just thing I would like to touch on is our transportation. Typically over the years, we have really struggled and worked hard to get that transportation budget to balance out. And I see now that we have a $439,000 surplus in that area. And I recognize that you were projecting, again, a deficit there of 28,000. And could you explain a little bit more to me about how we saved the money there and how that affects our partners in their, in how they offer that transportation? I mean, is this a big blow for those folks? Because I know that they are also struggling with rising insurance and fuel costs.
Okay. Yeah, so the surplus in transportation came from two areas, I guess. The first one being that last year was the first year of the new funding formula, and the only area that wasn't changed was the transportation funding. So they actually held us to the exact same funding in the previous year. So we had probably our highest enrollment the previous year, and so they held the funding at that point. Because of the kind of the shutdown with the schools and students staying home last year, we didn't have the same student enrollment, but we were still receiving the funding as the previous year. So that gave us kind of record high transportation revenue. I would say when they move forward and actually give us the new formula, our enrollment's going to be a bit lower. The formula is probably going to be a bit different. and so our funding will definitely decrease in the future, which I would say it's going to be next year. The other part of it was that we did shut schools down for a few weeks in the spring, so the transit buses were not running from the city of Red Deer. We did still compensate Prairie Bus Lines for, so we kind of honored our contract that we had with them, even though the buses weren't running. And that was kind of a direction from Alberta Education that was their wish. But the city of Red Deer, their buses actually, their transit buses weren't running because the services weren't needed. So there was definitely savings there. So between those two, higher than expected revenue and lower expenses due to just lower ridership is what caused that surplus.
And so our partners, Prairie Bus Line and the cities, are they, obviously if we honored the contract, it didn't hurt them as much as it possibly could have, right? So like I worry about them going forward. I know that there's struggles there, and Red Deer Public probably doesn't have the same problems with transportation as some of the rural districts do. But I do know that there's some concerns, so.
Yeah, the city of Red Deer in this current school year didn't change our cost per rider. So I think they felt that they were getting a fair deal from us, and they're able to still offer the services. Prairie Bus Lines, their rates change every year, and so they do adjust it to meet their needs. So I think on that end too, they're making do with what they can. Being that Prairie Bus Lines is owned by Southland Transportation, they're a fairly large busing company, and so they're not being overly affected by the rising insurance costs. Obviously, they're being affected by the increased fuel costs, but I'm guessing that they had built those into their proposal when they bid on the contract.
Thank you. I appreciate those answers, Colin.
Thank you very much. Trustee McCulley?
Thank you. Colin, can I get some clarification, please, on the funding adjustment for the enrollment projection? I understand that it's a one-time funding to mitigate unpredicted support. Could I have some clarification on some avenues that funding went to? Like exactly what did Red Deer Public use that for?
Okay, I'll try to explain it without doing too much accounting lingo, but yeah, because it's kind of a shuffling of the entries. So because we had lower than expected enrollment for last year, but it was the province wanted to continue to fund us at what we were projected. So they promised to provide that in the new year. But because the enrollment was lower than projected, I had to do an entry to actually put that as a payable. So we did owe the province that money back. It was 1.466 million, I believe. So we did owe that money back. So I set it up as a payable. But they said moving forward into the 21-22 school year, it would be in a sense funded to us through the COVID mitigation funding. So it just happened to be the exact dollars. So we are receiving the funds again this year. So, and that money I would say is being directly used towards our at-home learning, enhanced cleaning, any substitutes. It's just at a smaller scale from last year, right? So, but we are using, that's kind of what the funds are being used to, so we can use our actual, promised funding and all the other formulas to keep the money in the classrooms.
So there isn't, or is there anything that it cannot be used for? I'm happy to hear that it can be used for people, so we can have people in the classrooms. Can it be used for transportation? Can it be used for Lysol wipes? Can it be used for insurance? Is there anything it can't be used for?
It can be used for anything other than administration. So we do have a pocket of funds. It's actually the only funding in our funding formula that has restrictions. And so we're provided some around 3.8 million in administration. So we can use some of the administration funds for instruction, but we can't increase our administration costs. So besides that, there's no restrictions. That's the one nice thing about the new funding formulas is they've removed the targeted funding. So.
Excellent. One last question, if I may. Am I understanding it correctly then, that this money has already been allocated for the 2021-2022 school year? So there is no, oh, let's take it out of there and put it someplace different because it's already needed there?
That's right. It was built into the budget, and so it's definitely being used in this year.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Trustee Waters.
If I can ask all trustees maybe to provide, when you're asking questions, a page number so that the other trustees or whoever is watching can follow. If possible, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other hands raised at this time. I would look for a motion if there are no more questions. Jim, would you like to make that motion as the chair of the audit committee? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. My video is going in and out, so I don't know if it's my connection or what's going on, but people show up and then they disappear. So if you're raising your hands, use the reaction so I can actually see it pop up, please. Awesome. Thank you very much, Trustee Waters.
Yeah, well, I've lost my video altogether now, so I don't know what room it's in or what planet, but I have no idea where it is. So I just thought I'd let you know that you're not going to be able to see me, but I can still hear all of you.
And Trustee Waters, are you making the motion with regards to approving the audited financial statements as presented?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Trustees, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We will move on in our agenda to 4.2, proposed policy 20, harm reduction. Superintendent Erickson.
Sure. So you were all provided with the policy 20 draft for your consideration, along with admin procedure 161 appendix C for your consideration. You've had that in your package since Thursday, so I'm not going to walk through each individual item. I'd just like to pass it over to trustees for comment and feedback for consideration.
Oh, let's know. Come on.
Trustee McCauley.
Thank you, Chair Buchanan. As those of us around the table know, this has been a very stressful process. We have been doing our due diligence with collecting information. And what I'm very proud of with this board is we've been collecting information from a variety of sources. And we've been collecting a variety of input from a variety of individuals. And that's what makes me really proud to be part of this district. This has not only been a top-down, but a bottom-up process. We've been talking to the ATA. We have been talking to CUPE. We have had the opportunity for community and staff members to provide their input. And each of the trustees around the table have been doing their own due diligence by researching and seeing how this will go. I would like to thank our superintendent for taking the time and making sure this was done in a way that we could cross as many T's and dot as many I's as we possibly could. As we all know, this is more than just a harm reduction policy, we're looking at people's opinions. We're looking at legal issues. We're looking at workplace safety. And to quote Trustee Waters, we're looking after children. That is our main thing. We're looking after children here. So I am very appreciative of all the time and effort that all our staff has done to put this in, and all the individuals that have come forward and have shared with us their concerns and their support in regards to this going forward. I know a lot of individuals have been waiting eagerly for this, but it's better to do something right once than to do it wrong over and over and over again. So I would be honored to move as is the approval of this document and to move forward.
Thank you very much, Trustee McCauley. So just to clarify, you are making the motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I do have hands raised from other trustees, but we will come back to that motion. Trustee Waters.
I think I'm figuring this out now. I can't add on really too much to what Diane said. This is a tough situation for everybody in. It's breaking a lot of families up, and we know that. But we have a responsibility to our staff to provide safe and health learning and working environments. And I said during the election that I think that staff should be vaccinated or to test every 72 hours. And I still think that is now. You know, some people have asked me, when do you think this is going to end? And to be quite honest, I don't think it's going to end for a very long time, because until we all take this serious, we're going to keep playing this over and over and over again. And by that time, maybe there'll be something else. So I will support this. I think it's important that we do it. And we do it for the right reasons. And like I said, we're doing it for the kids and for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters. Trustee Peacock.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate the work and consideration that's gone into drafting this policy, a lot of consultation. And just looking at the admin procedure, I'm not clear. So if I may, on page 5, and I'll direct this, if I may, Chair Buchanan, to the superintendent. So it indicates under 3.11, up to and including February 18th, the division will provide at its cost semi-weekly rapid tests for employees and practicum students. And thereafter, employees and practicum students shall provide test results in accordance with 3.2. So I take that to mean that up until February 18th, the district provides it at no cost. After that, the individuals are responsible for it. But if I go down to 3.1.2, it says employees and practicum students using the free testing provided by the division will pick up the kits at Central Services. A month's supply of kits will be provided each time. So that's where I'm not clear. Are we providing a kits for free up until February 18th, but then it indicates we're going to give a month's supply each time? So if I could ask for clarification there, is that where employees are purchasing them?
Yeah, so no, sorry. Thanks for that question, Trustee Peacock. So we have applied and secured a number of test kits from the provincial government, and that allows us to have the kit in the employee's hands. The challenge is with recording and uploading the data. So we are entering into an agreement with COVID Detect, which is an app-based monitoring program. So the individual would take the test home, complete the test in the privacy of their home, upload it to COVID Detect app, which has the cost attached to it. And I'm going to ask Associate Superintendent Lauer to put any information and fill in the gaps if I'm missing it. And currently we have a cost of $12 per upload of that test result. So that's where the cost item comes in. We spent time looking at a variety of options to reduce the cost as much as we could for staff that were choosing the rapid testing option.
Thank you. So the first month is at our cost. After that, it's at the escape. That's thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
Thank you very much, Trustee Peacock. Associate Superintendent Dan Lauer, I see you raised your hand. Was it to respond to that question?
Yes, it was. I was just going to back chat up in case there's any, but that's exactly, I think Trustee Peacock fully understands now exactly the tests will provide no cost to us. It's the cost of uploading that, and that will be at the employees. So we can give the test a month in advance, but when we have to start paying on the daily basis for the uploading of the test, that will be the employee's responsibility.
Thank you very much, Associate Superintendent Lauer. I do see hands raised from Trustee Manning.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? I appear to be frozen on my own screen, so
Yes.
not that that's unusual. I'm always cool. I just want to make sure you can hear me. A couple of things that I just wanted to ask about, if I might. On the policy portion, I've had some folks come to me with concerns about the name of the policy, and that that is perhaps misnomer to call it a harm reduction policy. And I can understand their concerns. For myself, I would probably just like to call it what it is, which would be a COVID-19 policy. Let's just call it what it is. That's what it is. We're talking about that. I don't necessarily think, since there is some disagreement as to whether or not we are actually reducing harm or not, perhaps we could just call it a COVID-19 policy. That might be a little bit more palatable for folks. The other, if you go down to where it talks in the background, it speaks about previously younger persons have been less likely to develop serious illness or death. However, the emergence of variant strains have seen increasing hospitalization rates and death among younger age groups. I'm not so sure we have data to back that up. And I would much rather not make statements like that. I think they're a bit inflammatory and are suggesting that we know things that we don't necessarily know. I would really like to consider just not making that statement in the policy. I'm not sure that it actually belongs there. And I don't know, Chair Buchanan, if you want to have a conversation about that, or if you want to get other opinions on that, but it would be my preference if we just didn't say that. The next paragraph down, it ends with the failure of these existing measures to limit the risk of the COVID-19 hazard intensifies the need for this policy. I'm not so sure that that is needed there either. So I would like to consider taking that out. The other, and if you go to the next page, where it says this policy does not apply to students and parents or guardians, I'm wondering, Superintendent, if you would comment on grandparents, and other relatives or guardians who at some point may need to enter the school to drop off or pick up a child who is sick, or something like that. Is that, are they considered in that group of parents / guardians?
I would say it would be parents, guardians, emergency contacts is potentially something we could add to that if the board agrees, given those situations, if we have a sick child and the parent or guardian isn't available, that we would have the emergency contact come to the school office to pick up that child.
I would appreciate that. I think, you know, we need to be able to let kids go home.
Thank you very much. Trustee Manning, are you finished? Because I do see a
Yeah.
hand raised from Trustee Waters, but I think that there are a few things that you had mentioned that we should discuss as a board. The first being that you mentioned the name with regards to harm reduction, actually changing the name to vaccination policy.
Just COVID-19 policy.
So trustees, there is a couple hands raised. Trustee Waters, you were first.
I was going to talk to Bev, or maybe ask you to explain, or even your last statement, because normally in a situation, if parents are called, is there not a process they follow now, or procedure they follow when they pick up their sick child? So that would not necessarily change, would it?
My question is just around grandparents or other emergency contacts,
Yeah.
as Superintendent
Yeah,
Erickson said.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think we have something in now that we automatically do. So I don't know if we need to keep adding and adding. Maybe we do for clarification. I don't know, because I think it ever comes back to normal. You know, in other words, it's already been there, and this is what we're doing. So do we need to put it down in writing? Is what I'm trying to ask.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Trustee Manning.
Well, I just think if we're going to talk about that parents or guardians, that it should qualify or emergency contacts. I appreciate what the superintendent has said there about emergency contacts.
For the addition of adding emergency contacts, can I see a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, and I don't see you, Trustee Peacock. I don't know it's probably my internet connection here, but that is carried. So we will add the emergency contacts. See a hand raised from Trustee McCulley.
Thank you very much. Can I get clarification, please, from Trustee Manning? Did I hear correctly one of the statements you made after the concern with the name of harm reduction was that this doesn't reduce harm? Did I hear you say that?
I'm not saying that that's necessarily my opinion, but I have heard others who are concerned about titling this policy that. And I do think that perhaps a COVID-19 policy is more generic, but also speaks to what the policy is about.
Okay, thank you very much for your clarification. What that statement speaks to me about is the fact that there are those that are not going to be happy with this, whether it's called the sunshine box of snickerdoodles. It's just not going to be. I recall in the summer when we were talking about a possible policy, we were receiving some very heavy feedback that anything that had the word COVID in it was going to be received as negative as well. So at this time, I am okay with the wording of the title of what this is, because I see it as just another way to wordsmith and prolong the discussion of those that have a difference of opinion on what COVID is or is not and what vaccines can and cannot do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters.
This got me thinking. So I'm not sure now that I agree that we should change it, because I guess what I'm afraid of If we come out with a COVID 20, do we then come out with a new policy and everything else again? Can we not find one name that would cover whatever the situation is under this, rather than just specifically say, well, this is for COVID-19 or this is for COVID 20 or 21 or whatever. So I guess my point is, I think now that I think about it, I really like this title because it's saying exactly what it is. It's pertaining to COVID-19. So I do like that. I'm just afraid that, and I also like to have one word or two words that would sort of explain it, so that if we do get something down the road, it can fall into this rather than just keep naming them and naming them and naming them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Summers?
Yes, I also support the COVID-19 policy name. I think it's exactly what it is, and there's no mistaking it, and that is what it is. The harm reduction, I find it is wordsmithing, and so I do support Trustee Manning's suggestion.
Trustee Gould?
Thanks. Yeah, I think we did talk about this at one of our earlier meetings around harm reduction versus being explicit about COVID. And I think one of the things was that putting the words harm reduction in there allows it to feel, I mean, even though we know what it is the second you start to read further, but it does kind of lay the reality is that we're doing this to reduce harm. And that I remember when we were talking with, say, the insurance company, and they were saying the kinds of terms that, in a sense, softening the language and isn't quite as brutal, and then you get further down into it. So I think for me, harm reduction, I mean, if the vote decides that it wants to be more on the nose with the COVID kind of a sense, I feel that's, of course, workable. But for me, the harm reduction works very well because, as Trustee Waters said, by the way, if something else comes down the pike or something transmutes or something shifts and changes, then harm reduction covers a variety of different things as far as I'm concerned. Also, I'd be a little nervous about getting, and maybe this is the process, that move too deeply into tearing it apart, as opposed to, as Diane McCauley was saying, voting for it and moving it forward, because we have talked for quite a while around a variety of things and have read the policy before. But I'm happy to learn as I sit here and open up to conversations that, I'm ready to. Anyway, there we go. So, and I might talk a bit later, but who knows? I'll be quiet for now.
Thank you very much, Trustee Gould. I've added myself to the speakers list. This question is either for Superintendent Erickson or Associate Superintendent Moltzen. I have a couple of questions with regards to liability. I know one of the reasons this policy was created was due to insurance and the risk of losing our insurance. I am curious if in our school division we have had any loss of life to the COVID virus. And then my next question would be, have we had any known injuries to vaccination?
Yeah, I don't know that we can weigh in on those questions, Chair Buchanan, given the privacy nature of those questions.
Okay.
Mr. Moltzen, feel free to jump in.
I would agree. I would say that on the loss of life, no. And on the other part, it'd be pure conjecture on my part, because we're not made aware of those things due to FOIP as far as medical concerns and medical notes and the brevity of them.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would support changing the name to what it is, a COVID vaccination policy. I think calling it a harm reduction policy is actually deceiving. When there is risk, there should be choice. There is the potential with the COVID vaccination with regards to injury. So to call it harm reduction, I think that we should call it a COVID vaccination policy. With regards to that, there were Trustee Manning and Trustee Summers and myself. Trustee McCulley was against. I believe Trustee Waters, you were against the name. Trustee Gould there, and Trustee Peacock, I would like you to weigh in as well. Thank you.
So if I may, I thought that the suggestion from Trustee Manning was that it be called a COVID-19 policy rather than a COVID-19 vaccination policy, because it is also a testing policy. So I could support calling it a COVID-19 policy and just be as simple as that.
That was my suggestion.
That's
Thank
what I
you,
thought.
Trustee Peacock. Yeah.
Okay, so show of hands of changing the policy name to COVID-19 policy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 or 4. Trustee McCulley, I see you shaking your head. You are opposed, correct? You're shaking your head yes to opposed. Okay, that can be recorded as 6-1. There were a couple other things, Trustee Manning, that you had mentioned in striking a couple of things from the policy. Do you want to go over the first one and we will see if it is the will of the board?
Sure. It was the statement that previously younger persons have been less likely to develop serious illness or death. However, the emergence of variant strains have seen increasing hospitalization rates and death among younger age groups. I just didn't feel that that was pertinent to the policy at this point in time. This is a situation that is ever changing and ever evolving. And I think when we make comments like that, we really need to be able to back them up with hard data. We don't know where this is going. And I just think that we would do ourselves a favor just to leave that comment out.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gould, I see you have a hand raised.
I would assume that it's put in there because there is data backing it up. Otherwise, I would be concerned as to why they would just pull this rabbit out of the hat and put it in if they didn't have stuff to back it up. So I don't believe that anything in this policy is put in because it sounds good or they're good words that people want to hear or not hear. Because to be honest, my understanding might be the opposite of yours, but younger people are finding there's more infection and death. But again, I don't want to fall down the rabbit hole of pretending we're medical experts or pretending we're doctors or pretending we know anything other than the fact that we have to protect our community and our children, and this is the policy that we're enacting. So from my perspective, I wouldn't assume that Mr. Erickson and the team put this together, but because they said, wow, this sounds good, let's throw it in there and not have anything to back it up. So the point is, if we keep tearing it apart from this regard, then I think that becomes dangerous, because then we're saying, what's your source? What's your source? And who are you talking to? And where are you getting your source of information? And I think that becomes something which means we're falling down rabbit holes forever and ever and ever. So again, I would say that the words are there because they are researched. Anyway, and then probably Mr. Erickson can say, well, no, we did make all this up, or actually there is data backing it up, because otherwise, you know, we have to trust that they're doing a responsible job in the creation of the policy and the wording of it.
If I might respond, Chair Buchanan, my comment was never to insinuate or suggest that our administration would ever do anything like that. Please don't misinterpret what I'm suggesting or asking. I am simply saying that I don't know that that necessarily belongs in the policy. I think the policy can be just as effective and just as strong without making comments in that regard, because I think the data is ever changing and ever moving, and this is a very fluid situation. And so I think we need to keep this policy as easy and simple as it can be. And I do not for one moment suggest that our administration would put anything in there in an onerous fashion. So please don't think that.
Thank you very much. Trustee Waters?
Trustee Gould said something that was remarkable, and I thank him for that. I think when you look at all the hard work that our superintendent and his staff all put in, including Rob in Human Resources, I think that I mean, depending which side of the fence you're on, you can find whatever data you want, and it'll give you exactly what you want. I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, but I believe in what they're saying, and I'm hoping that this goes away someday. I don't think hot sun will do it, but I just hope one day that it's gone. But until then, we have to respect the information that's out there with the data that's being provided. So again, thank you to our superintendent and everybody involved in the great job they've done. And it's something they put a lot of effort into. And I'm sure it wasn't during the 8 hours. I'm sure they spent longer than that just to make sure they had all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So thank you very much for all that.
Thank you very much, Trustee McCully.
Thank you. A couple questions first, if I can get clarity. Is this policy a temporary policy?
Trustee McCully, are you asking your question to Superintendent Erickson?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, it is a temporary policy that we would say would be reviewed as early as the next 6 months. So my feeling, unless there was new information that brought it back to the board beforehand, I would look at the board meeting on June 8th as a review date, but potentially sooner. I was just going to jump in with the fact that it is a very dynamic document right now, because at the time of writing even that statement that we we're just talking about, vaccines weren't available for the 5 to 11-year-olds, which precipitated us including that in the backgrounder. But now that we have vaccines available for 5 to 11-year-olds, do we change some of the writing to include that piece of it? So it is very dynamic.
Thank you. And that is what I wanted public and verbal clarification on. And that is why I approve the way it is written now, because it is dealing with what we are facing now. All our policies can be changed with a meeting and a stroke of a pen if things change. And we do not go through all of our policies thinking, to this extent, what is going to happen in 2 months. We do try to think, of course, long-term, because the last thing we want to do is to bind our superintendent and our senior admin's hands and times by taking them out of the classrooms and out of curriculum review meetings and dealing with policy, but it is part of our job. So I would not support taking that out, because at this time, during this vote, that information is very pertinent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee McCully. Any other trustees have questions, comments? I'll add myself. So one of the things that I have considered over this conversation that has been brought up and discussed over several months is where our numbers are at in the community. RD News Now reported last week in several articles that the numbers in Red Deer have greatly decreased and are under 150 now of active cases in our community. Our vaccination rates have increased, recognizing that this policy would create a lot of work for our administration and senior admin. I feel that I truly believe that our staff every single day goes into our buildings doing what's best for kids, and have taken into consideration with regards to doing their due diligence to be vaccinated, socially distance, wear masks. For that reason, I would not support this policy, because I do think that we should be focusing on things in our schools like reading, writing, and arithmetic, and the learning gaps that have been created throughout this pandemic, instead of creating more work for our staff with regards to creating divisiveness, and collecting personal medical information from staff members when the vaccination rate in our community is as high as it is. I see a couple hands raised from a couple trustees. Trustee Waters.
I appreciate your comments, Chairman Buchanan, but I don't think I'm willing just to, because things are going down to, okay, we can lower the shield now. I think we have to keep doing what we're doing to make sure this is down to as low as we can possibly get it. And we haven't got there yet. And with something always new coming around the corner, we have to be able and be prepared to make tough decisions. And this is a tough decision. Now, I don't know when I can do this, but when this is done, I'd like to make a motion where trustees follow the same suit, or whatever this is, so that we lead by example. So again, I would like to, whenever we do it, whether they do it later or not, I think it's important that we as trustees take a stand and do this as well. But again, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm not willing to let the guard down to where they can creep back in. I'd rather just get it down to zero. 100 might sound fine, or 150 might sound fine, but zero is even better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters. Trustee Gould.
Thank you. So I just wanted to remind everybody that one of the reasons that this policy is moving forward, of course, is insurance. And I don't think we want to lose our insurance. And the insurance company is not about to say, well, fine, the numbers are going down in Red Deer. We've seen them go up and down. There can be a fifth wave coming around the bend right after Christmas. I don't think we can ignore what the federal government's doing, what the provincial government's doing, what many, many companies and organizations are doing around vaccination, and most of the school boards around the province as well. So I can only say, of course, first of all, I agree with Trustee Waters that the trustees need to be included in this, and we know they are because we are staff of the school board, because I think Chad cleared that up for us at one of our previous meetings. Or maybe we're not, so then we need to add it. Okay, fine. So if we're not, Nicole, then I think we certainly need to add it so that we are not being hypocrites. And we're saying, by the way, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So I think that's all at this sweaty round. And then we'll see what other drops of sweat happen later on, as long as it doesn't turn to blood.
Thank you very much, Trustee Gould. I was shaking my head, as was Trustee Manning, with regards to us being considered employees of the school division. Having looked into that a little bit further, we are not considered employees of the school division under the Education Act. A couple other hands are raised. Hold on, let me see who is next. Trustee Peacock. I have you muted, Kathy. Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you. I had raised my hand on this matter that's just being discussed. So I would propose an amendment to the policy on page 2 of the policy. At the very top, it talks about scope. This policy applies to all employees, all contractors, and all volunteers. And I would add in there and trustees. And Madam Chair, that's my motion to add and trustees as a D under 1D.
I would consider that motion to be out of order, Chair Buchanan. You cannot include people who you have no governance over in a motion. It would be like us saying that all employees at Costco have to be vaccinated as well. You have no jurisdiction over trustees. According to the School Act, we are not employees of the district, and you have absolutely no jurisdiction over us. I would ask administration to seek a legal opinion on that, but I would consider that motion to be completely out of order.
Thank you very much. Trustee Peacock, is it in response to
Yeah,
that?
I strongly disagree with that comment.
I guess my question would be, as elected officials, I would be interested in seeking a legal opinion on that as well, for that addition of, because my question would be, if trustees don't follow said policy as elected officials, then what do you do? Are we having a code of conduct? And so there's several other hands raised. Let me pull up the participants list to see who is next. Trustee McCulley.
Thank you. Great point. And as the mover of the motion, I would have considered it a friendly amendment, but I'm also glad there is discussion on this. For anyone who has left their house in the last 3 months and went to a arena or a sporting event or a restaurant, you have to prove and you have to show your either QR code or your negative test code. So it's something that has been happening all over this wonderful city for a few months now. And they don't, I am not forced to go into a restaurant. I am not forced to go into a grocery store. It is a privilege. So is being an elected official. I feel it's being a privilege to be a trustee for Red Deer Public Schools. And anyone who put their hat in the ring to run for trustee this past fall knew that there was going to be vaccinations and proof of negative COVID tests already happening. We found that out with the past trustee from Edmonton Catholic who ran knowing that their board already even had a mandate that trustees had to be vaccinated. Are we employees? That's an interesting conversation because I was one of the individuals that asked our HR if we were employees, and the answer was yes. We have individuals in this policy that we don't govern, like guardians that was just added to this policy. We have had feedback from those that we do govern over, like QP and ATA, and they welcome this policy with their input. So if it isn't part of this policy, having the word trustees added to it, I sincerely hope we have a second motion to add the word trustees in, because this isn't the only district that has trustee covered. There are metro districts, metro boards that have their trustees in their policies. So if they are doing it and there has not been any legal action against them, I would be quite surprised that this would be cause for any kind of legal action. Because as we stated in some of our earlier conversations, this isn't a must-have, it's a choice. You had a choice to run for school board. You have a choice to get vaccinated. You have a choice to provide a negative COVID test. Lots of choices out there. I guess it just depends on if the choice didn't come from you, does that not make it a good choice? We don't always have control over the choices that come before us, but there's definitely a choice here. And I would approve having the word trustee in this policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee McCullough. Trustee Waters.
Thank you. You know, we could argue about this till next week if we wanted to. And you come up with all sorts of reasons, this or that or whatever. But we have a responsibility here. And if we're going to go to our staff and say, this is what we expect you to do, as trustees, we need to do that. It doesn't have to be in this policy. It can be on our own separate policy if we have to, but we have to do it. So however we do it, we need to do it, and we need to do it after we finish this one, because we need to lead by example. And right now, if we keep arguing, I mean, I don't think we are employees of the district. I think we are elected, and I think we need to have our own policy regarding that. I really do. I just don't think that we should argue till midnight about whether we should have this in the policy or not. I don't believe, again, like I said, we are employees, and I really think let's take ownership. And I made the motion, simple motion of doing it after. Let's take responsibility. Let's do our job and lead, because we are expecting our employees to do the same thing, and we need to lead in the front. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters. Trustee Gould.
Huh. It's lucky I had the mic off because I swore for a second while I was trying to find the button to unmute myself. Okay, so anyway, sorry. Yeah, so two things. One is the House of Commons. They have to be vaccinated. The other thing too, looking at Trustee Waters and Trustee Peacock, the idea of having that in that document, because if people are quite nervous about this document and they say, look, well, by the way, it's A, B, C, D, and they're including the trustees and it's there in that policy, then it is goose and the gander and not hypocritical, and we're putting our money where our mouth is. So I would certainly actively support Trustee Peacock's addition of the word trustees in that list of who needs to be covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Gould. Trustee Peacock. And Trustee Peacock,
Thank
I'm
you.
muted.
So I would go to the first paragraph of the policy. It talks about the division being committed to providing safe and healthy learning and working environments. At the end of that paragraph, the division has legal obligations to take all reasonable steps to identify, eliminate, and control workplace hazards like COVID-19. And I would go back to the fact that I do want to see trustees in this policy before it would be passed, because first of all, we absolutely need to be setting an example that this policy would apply to us as well as the other people listed in the policy. But also, we do have the right to control who comes into our school buildings and facilities. So it's not that it's saying that a trustee, as a trustee, has to be vaccinated or tested. It's that anyone who's coming into our schools, including trustees, would be vaccinated or tested. So I think it's irrelevant who it is that we're saying. We could say the premier has to be vaccinated to come into our schools. It is within our control of the board and senior admin. They do ban people from school buildings at times. So it is within our authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Peacock. Trustee Summers.
Yeah, I too would support putting the word trustees into the policy this time around and not waiting. I feel it's very important that we set an example and include ourselves in this. Thank you.
You were cutting in and out for other People in the meeting or just myself, but I do believe that I got the gist of that. Can I see?
Here, I can.
The person
I was saying
could
that
see
I
it,
do.
Kathy, were you able to hear that from Trustee
Okay.
Summers?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I did.
And now it's all frozen. I did have myself on speaker list. Go ahead, Trustee Summers. Oh, so I have added myself to the speakers list, so I am going to make a comment. I have mentioned it in person and I will mention it again. I'm actually quite offended meeting to for it to be suggested that as elected officials, that some of us are not leading by example. But I don't feel that that's anyone's business. To provide my medical information to anyone. I've also received an antibodies test and I have natural immunity. So I feel as an elected official that it goes without saying that yes, we lead by example, and that it does not need to be captured by actually stating as such in the policy. So it's unfortunate that some trustees feel that it needs to be there. I personally don't.
Sorry, is
I feel
everybody
that
else hearing
everything
Nicole
that
go
I
in and
do,
out?
is to lead by
Yeah,
example.
Nicole,
so,
sorry,
Nicole,
you're really
unfortunate that
jumpy.
that's Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to turn the video off and see if I turn my video off, does that help? Trustee McCulley, can you hear me better now?
Say something a little longer. The alphabet?
I could sing a tune for
Yeah.
you. I don't know what you want me to say.
The alphabet?
Perhaps you could just start repeating some of your comments that might have missed,
F, G.
and we'll see if it works.
So one of the things I am concerned about with regards to some that have been made is with regards to leading by last municipal election to
Nicole, it's the same.
unity.
Sorry, Nicole, you're still cutting in and out.
I'll turn to Superintendent Erickson. I don't know if, because I think it's Mandy who's controlling the meeting. Okay, Nicole has left, so let's just give her a minute to sign back in again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you right now,
Yes?
Nicole.
Okay. Awesome. I've jumped onto a different internet connection, so hopefully that rectifies the problem, and I'll leave my video off when I'm speaking. I personally don't think that trustees need to be added to this policy. As elected officials, I believe that we were elected because there is the expectation that we lead by example. I can only speak for myself, but I have said it in person and I will say it again. I myself have been getting rapid tests every 72 hours, as well as I have got antibodies test, and I do have natural immunity. So I actually am offended to hear that if it was not added to the policy, that there is the assumption that we wouldn't be leading by example. So anyways, that is my comment. There are other trustees that have their hands raised. Let me pull up my participants list, which I've lost. Trustee Waters.
I respect everybody's opinion here. I think it's worthwhile, but I'd like to call it now that we vote on this, because if not, we're going to go back and forth and back and forth. But my other comment will be what Trustee McCauley said. You know, the world out there is making changes for us, whether we like it or not. If you don't like it, eventually you're not going to go anywhere. We can't travel. We can't do anything. So we have to do something. And I think what we're doing in this policy is the best of the best. And I believe trustees, whether we add, it doesn't matter to me whether we add trustees onto this policy or if we have a separate emotion, we have to be part of it one way or the other. So I don't know how much more we're going to keep talking over and over and over again about this, because really this has been discussed before the new board come in before. And I'd like to get back on to thinking, working for kids and helping the district any way we can, rather than keep talking about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters. Trustee Peacock?
Thank you. The reason I put an amendment in to add all trustees is because I was hearing that people saying, and perhaps rightfully so, I'm not disagreeing with that trustees are not employees, in which case when the policy lists that it'll apply to employees, contractors, and volunteers, if trustees don't fall within those three groups, that's why I was adding the word trustees, just to make it clear, so that anyone looking at this policy immediately understands that it is an inclusive policy to include members of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Peacock. Trustee Manning?
Thank you. I do have a couple of other questions, and I know that there is a amendment on the floor, but it does refer in the School Act that on page 91, that trustees are not considered employees of the district. So if you want to overreach and include trustees, I would consider that to be a motion that would be out of order, and I would not support that. I stick to my original comment on that. And trustees are not in our school buildings on a daily basis. So if you want to lead by example, I suggest you do what Chair Buchanan is doing and be rapid tested every 72 hours, because there's no difference in being able to transmit this virus, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. So I would think that if you really are considering making the school building safe for everybody, that everybody should be rapid tested every 72 hours. But I did have another couple of questions about the policy that I think are kind of important. So I don't know, Chair Buchanan, if you would like to me to continue with that, or where we're at. I think it's important to get the policy right. Yeah. It talks about the policy being temporary, and that it will be reviewed at least every 6 months and updated and amended as deemed necessary. I'm wondering if the superintendent has any criteria which he has considered that would give cause to amend or rescind or change, or is it just a environmental scan of the day? Will it be numbers? Will it be data? Will it be vaccination rates? Will it be I don't know what.
My suggestion would be if we see provincial mandates change, then it'd be brought back to the board at that time for consideration.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. I'm wondering if that needs to be added into the policy, Superintendent Erickson, if something like that to explain or suggest what might cause a change in the policy.
Point of order, we're really going off the amendment discussion. If just to not muddy the waters, I appreciate Trustee Manning's questions, but at this time, to follow our due diligence and process-wise, can we please have the questions around the possible amendment just focused on right now, or we're going to be going all over the place and it's going to be hard to get us back together.
Understood, Trustee McCauley.
Thank you.
Okay, with regards to the amendment from Trustee Peacock regarding adding trustees to the policy.
Chair Buchanan, I've considered that amendment to be out of order. I would probably suggest that maybe there be a ruling on that.
And who would make that ruling?
Well, I think it would be the chair.
And as the mover of the motion, I find it a friendly amendment because we have other individuals in this policy that don't fit under employees. So I think that would be a wide stretch to say that we don't fit in because we are not employees, but contractors and volunteers and guardians do. If it was
And
just
if
one specific group, absolutely, I'd be with you 110%, but we're not.
If
We are
one person
talking
if one person disagrees that it's friendly, then it's not friendly.
Not with the mover.
No, anybody
If
in
the
the room.
mover decides,
Anybody in the room, Trustee McCauley.
I disagree.
Stand by.
Sorry to jump in, but I just don't know where we're at.
I'm just seeking clarification with regards to a friendly amendment so just give me a few seconds as I'm not a parliamentarian. I am looking this up. Okay, so friendly amendments are often allowed by the chair after consent by the original mover of the motion. So Trustee McCauley, you have stated that you consider that a friendly amendment. As the chair, I will allow it to be a friendly amendment.
So at this
Okay, so
time,
we
I call the question on the amendment.
I would have to strongly object that is not a friendly amendment. If one person objects that it's friendly, that it's not friendly, then it's not friendly. I would stand on that as attending so many ASBA meetings and listening to parliamentarians. So I would, Trustee Peacock, I think you know.
I support Trustee Manning on this point. Once a motion is made, it becomes the motion of the whole body of the people, and therefore it needs to be fully supported to be considered a friendly amendment.
Okay. So those that are wiser than me and have been sitting in the room,
All it means is that we need to vote on the amendment.
okay. So the amendment would not be considered friendly, which would mean that we would vote on it, right? As an amendment?
That's right.
Could you please read
Okay,
the amendment
so-
again? Could you please read the amendment again?
Trustee Peacock, can you read your amendment to,
So my amendment would be that on page 2 under point number 1, where it says all employees, all contractors, and all volunteers, I would add, I guess, all trustees.
thank you very much.
Actually, you know what, I would maybe just say trustees rather than all trustees, but.
A question, if I may, because Nicole, you can't see us raising our hands. So let's say for a moment, humor me, this is defeated. Does this go back again to where? Because once a motion is defeated, we go back to the original, or will my motion then come into effect? I just want to know, because that's going to depend how I vote. So, I mean, my motion was, we'll just make a motion for all trustees just themselves, not be in this policy, but have our own emotion, whatever you want to call it, so that we too are either vaccinated or the test as well. So I just want to be clear, if this is voted down, does then it go back to my motion that I made earlier that we vote on that then?
Could I just jump in to potentially clear this up within the admin procedure definitions of volunteer, including any individual who is not an employee and who provides services within a division building? So would trustees be classified as providing services within a division building when you are attending a division building in the role of trustee? Is it captured within the volunteer category when you are going to the school building?
I would consider that reasonable, Trustee Erickson. Or, pardon me, Superintendent Erickson.
I'm a trustee now?
Yeah, you get to vote. Sorry, I apologize.
Trustee
Superintendent
McCulley?
Erickson.
Thank you, Chair Buchanan. Thank you, Superintendent Erickson, for defining the word volunteer. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. But is my understanding then, if trustees fall under the definition of volunteer, then what is the issue with having the word trustee in there? Is it just the word? Because it certainly makes a lot more clarification for me to have the word trustee in there. And if we're already covered under the definition of volunteer, I would support having the word trustee added to it.
Thank you very much. The question has been called. There are a few trustees that have their hands raised with regards to the amendment. Trustee Waters and Trustee Gould, I see that you've now put your hands down. With regards to the question, Trustee Waters, go ahead. Now your hand's down
Again, we're getting down to, either way we're going to be in there. So if this motion is, I'm not ready to accept this motion, but then I would accept it if it means that if it's defeated, that we can't get it in my way, which would be simply making a motion to have trustees be included in their own policy or however you want to word it. What I'm afraid to do is, because I don't mind trustee, that's fine. If that's what we come up with, that's fine. But if it's defeated, where does it go from there? That's what I'm trying to find out, please. Just a clarification.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters. I believe that the amendment is from Trustee Peacock to add to page 2, to add trustees. Trustee Peacock, your hand is raised. Am I wrong in regards to that amendment?
Going back and forth on this. So Trustee Waters is asking if there's 2 motions on the floor, and I don't think there is. Otherwise, one would be a substitute motion. So to answer Trustee
I
Waters'
believe it is only that one motion right now.
Right. Okay, that's what I wanted to be clear. And if that motion and another motion could be raised after, if necessary. I just thought this was the simplest way to put it within our policy. Thank you.
Okay, with regards to the amendment from Trustee Peacock, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Trustee Summers, I don't see your video.
Trustee Summers' hand is up.
I just saw put the hand up. So 5. All those opposed? And I'm opposed as well, so that it could be recorded as 5-2, but it is carried. Okay, with regards to the motion from Trustee McCulley, the question has been called. Trustee McCulley, do you want to close before?
I have another comment.
Yeah, if I may, I was calling the question on the amendment. I think there was still further discussion on the broader first policy. So yes, please, Trustee Manning, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Buchanan. May I?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I also just wanted to ask about under the general guidelines, number 1, all employees, contractors, and volunteers are required to be fully immunized with a vaccine against COVID-19, which is approved by Health Canada or Alberta Health Services no later than January 10, 2022. I wanted to ask if there was any consideration or questions about what happens if there is shots that come forward again for booster 3, booster 4, or any subsequent vaccinations regarding variations of the virus.
My current understanding is fully immunized is having 2 shots, and that's covered in the definitions.
And so if that
change, then it would have to come back to the board to make that adjustment.
Okay, thank you. Because as you know, this is not, apparently 1 shot doesn't do it. We need more. I do have some comments that I would like to make. Chair Buchanan, if I might.
Yes.
So I do want to continue to reiterate my stance and to reaffirm that as both a trustee and a human being, we have absolutely no right, we have no moral authority, and we have no legal authority over anybody's body in any way, shape, or form. I believe that this policy potentially puts the district in a vulnerable legal position. I know we have a fiduciary responsibility to look after our insurance, and I appreciate that. And I am also concerned about that. I don't want us to be spending more money on insurance or to get us kicked out of USIC. But I do think that there are other ways that we could work at getting around that and looking at other possibilities. I know that there are other school divisions in our province who have looked at that and who have said no to these types of policies. And so I wonder how they're managing their insurance issues and needs. I believe that this policy really compromises a person's freedom of choice. I was raised to believe that no means no. And if I don't want something put into my body, I shouldn't have to have it put into my body. I understand that we are offering the choice of rapid testing, but I do believe that medical treatment or that medical test may either be unwarranted or unwanted. And I don't think that we have the right to force that onto somebody. I believe that these requirements are not outlined in either our ATA or our CUPE contracts or collective agreements. And to add this requirement at this point, I think is unfair to our employees who operate under those contracts. And I also believe that, again, puts us in a vulnerable legal position. Insurance companies are not my legal or my moral authority. I understand that they offer us a service, and I would like to see them operate on more. I understand actuaries, and I understand what they do, and I understand they run businesses, and that they try and remove the human aspect out of it. As a trustee, as an elected politician, as somebody who represents my community, I cannot remove the human aspect out of this. There is a human aspect here. There are some inconsistencies and irregularities that I think we sometimes overlook here. We're not proposing to test all employees, as Chair Buchanan said herself, that she is rapid tested often. I don't know why we think that the vaccinated are unable to transmit this disease when all of the elected officials have said, or all of our health officials have said, that this virus can be transmitted by both the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, and the vaccinated are still getting COVID. It's in the news every day. Natural immunity should be considered. I believe up until recent history, natural immunity has been cited by scientists and the medical community as the best defense. And I would really have loved to have seen something in this policy regarding that. I don't think we should be interfering with doctor-patient privilege, and I don't think we should be asking employees or anybody to reveal their personal medical care history. They have always been the right of the individual, living freely without judgment, and being able to participate in a free and open society. We have high vaccination rates as it is. 85% of Albertans have been vaccinated, yet we still continue to pressure that small minority to get the vaccine and blame them for this situation. I don't think that just doesn't seem reasonable to me, to blame such a small minority of people for these problems. The vision of Red Deer Public Schools states, we are a culture of respect, inclusion, caring, and excellence where every student succeeds. Our mission is striving for excellence by inspiring learning and nurturing hope in every student. How can we say that we are building a culture of respect and inclusion with a policy that segregates people? I have a vision as well. One that says that no matter who you are, you're welcome here. No matter what your beliefs are, you're welcome here. We accept all, we respect all, and we protect all. This is a safe place. This is a place where we all learn and work together and help advance public education. And we nurture students. This is a place where we respect the rights of human beings to have their own beliefs. We respect one another's bodily autonomy. We have a place here for you. We value relationships that are based on trust and integrity in how we treat one another. You don't need to prove anything to me to belong here. You don't need to show me a QR code or a status of any kind to belong here. We want you here, and we want you here unconditionally. This policy is counterproductive to that vision, and I will not support it.
Thank you very much, Trustee Manning. Trustee Waters?
Very well said, Bev. But as I said earlier on, there's that fine line. You're on one side or you're on the other. the world is changing, and the world has acted way before we have. And quite frankly, I think schools have waited too long because the governments have waited too long and they put everything on the schools. I support what we're doing. I look at it, you're saying about age, I got it because of my age, knowing full well that if I did get it, I would hope that I would survive, or at least have a better chance of surviving. Yes, I know I can transfer it. I know that. But that didn't stop me from what I thought was right, but trying to be safe for myself and try to help others. I think, I mean, if you look at it, somebody said earlier on, well, you can't go to a movie theater. You can't. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't. You can't go traveling. You can't. So the world has reacted a lot quicker than we have, and it's going to keep reacting. As far as I said, when I said it earlier, being normal again, I don't foresee that in the next 5 years, because until we get everybody that's willing to be vaccinated, we're always going to have the two groups. And I think that's where we'll always have difference. And it's going to cause a lot of pain. There's no doubt about it. But I think what we're doing is right. And we are giving employees an opportunity to either be vaccinated or the test. And most companies are doing that. And I think that's the right thing to do. You do have a choice, and nobody's taking your choice away from you, really, except that, well, I shouldn't say that. I guess we are. We're giving you two choices instead of three. And most companies are doing that now. Most companies, I think, possibly are even saying you need to be vaccinated or that's it. So I don't want to go there. And as far as our insurance company goes, we spend an awful lot of money for insurance. And for us to go somewhere else, and even if that doubles or triples, I don't even want to go there, what that means, because it's not going to be nice. So I fully accept, as I said when I was running for election, in this policy. And I want us to do what's right for all of us. And hopefully someday, and I hope to see it, but who knows, where we do get back to normal. Because right now, we're not back to normal. And I just hope someday we will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Waters. I see no other hands raised. Trustee McCulley, would you like to close with your motion?
Thank you, Chair Buchanan. Thank you, Trustee Gould. Thank you, Trustee Peacock. Thank you, Trustee Summers. Thank you, Trustee Manning. And thank you, Trustee Waters. I heard an interesting podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was about insurance. And the one statement that they said that stuck out in my head was, insurance is about the ifs, not the whens. That's why our insurance rates have went through the roof, not only because they're not regulated, and they should be regulated, but they have to look after the ifs. Whether this policy is approved or not, there's division, because there are individuals who are vaccinated. There are students that are vaccinated. And if this policy does not get approved by this board, they will feel like they are not being heard, and they will feel like they are not in a safe place as well. I remember where I was July 1st when I read on Twitter the big announcement that Alberta was open for summer. And it was one of those interesting feelings where I was scared and happy all at the same time, because there was this elation that came over me going, yay, we can get back to close contact. We can do things with people. We don't have to wear a mask. And then all of a sudden the fear and the cold sweat came over me going, what has changed that has allowed this? Just because an individual has said so, because I'm still looking at the data, I'm still looking at the numbers rising and thinking things haven't changed enough for me to feel safe here. And at this time, I don't feel safe yet. And a lot of people that have reached out to me expressed the same feelings. They wanted to feel safe. Last year, with the schools being closed so often, I heard from parents who were struggling with their at-home learners. And I heard from teachers who felt they could not connect with their students because of at-home learning. I feel very grateful that we were able to provide at-home learning and that we still do. But we all know that is not the best environment for our students to learn in. Having a teacher within a visual, even though it may have a mask, it just is a better learning condition for our kids to be able to see and hear and be surrounded by other beating hearts. I thank again everyone that put in their time and their knowledge and their expertise into this policy. And a big thank you to our QP and ATA unions that provided their feedback and are willing to work with us on implementing this. A big thank you to all the parents and guardians, volunteers that provided their input, and that they look forward to coming back into the schools as well and helping our students, because our students are number one on every one of our minds. And at this time, as our chair said, I was the mover of the motion. I would like to call the question.
Thank you very much, Trustee McCulley. And I don't see people's hands. All those in favor?
Sorry,
Kathy
there's
has
people's
Kathy
hands.
has her hand.
Sorry, just to be clear, the vote is on the amended motion?
Yes,
Okay,
it was
thank you.
amended. So it would be on the amended motion. Sorry. All those in favor of the amended motion? And I don't see videos, unfortunately. I think it has something to do with my connection.
Diane McCauley says aye.
Thank you.
Pat
I
Booth
see
says aye.
hands in the.
Jim
1,
Waters
2,
says hi.
3. Okay, and I've seen everyone else. So I have a 5 in favor, all those opposed. And I don't see Trustee Manning, your.
Sorry, I am opposed.
Thank you. The vote can be recorded as 5-2 and the motion is carried. That is everything on our agenda. I will adjourn this meeting at 4:45 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a safe good night.